Hi, everybody. I'm Nora O'Donnell, and this is Healthful. Every week, I bring you the latest science and trusted medical expertise to help you improve your health, your happiness, and just to improve your life. Healthful, a new CBS News podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Dolly Parton, when you love pop culture as much as we do here, you mourn her death and offer thanks for her range of talents, outsized generosity, and her delightful approachability. The U.S. trade war with Canada is now fully engaged, with economic hardships coming to consumers in both countries. Lost jobs, too, probably. Is there an off-ramp? We ask Doug Ford, the pugnacious premier of Ontario. There is a new study on CTE and NFL players, and it strongly suggests the risks of brain damage are much higher than previously known. We explore the data and the implications. Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Welcome to the Takeout. Dolly Parton was not part of American political life, though she was adored by politicians of many different stripes. Superstars, you see, transcend that way. But one of Dolly's songs, and it was a huge hit for her, cuts into universal themes of a faceless economic system that keeps a good woman or a good man down. You know the song. You may well know the movie, 9 to 5. That movie premiered in 1980, a time defined by economic hardships of inflation and unemployment, but also defined by the arrival in much larger numbers of women into the workforce. Dolly wrote 9 to 5 from the perspective of a woman, and the movie was a feminist anthem of sorts, but it was also significantly a launching pad for Dolly, who by then was an admired singer-songwriter, but after that movie's rapturous reception became a full-blown and permanent superstar. There is a verse in 9 to 5 that broadens beautifully aggravations inherent in a hard knocks economic system of winners and losers, haves and have-nots.
They let you dream just to watch them shatter. You're just a step on the boss man's ladder, but you got dreams he'll never take away. On the same boat with a lot of your friends, waiting for the day your ship will come in and the tide's gonna turn and it's all gonna roll your way. Working 9 to 5.
Dolly most assuredly did not write that song as a meditation on trade policy, but stay with me now. The current trade battle between the United States, specifically the Trump White House, and Canada speaks to a theme in 9 to 5, that song. Powerful people making decisions that leave the little guy hurting with almost no recourse. Here's the nerdy numbers part. Canada announced tariffs today on $20 billion in U.S. goods. About 700 items will be covered, and the tariffs will clock in between 15% and 50%, depending on the item being taxed. Because remember, each tariff is a tax passed on to consumers. The Canadian tariffs are due to start September 8th. And if they do, Americans will then pay more for dairy, seafood, appliances, wood, paper, and clothes. A 50% tariff is due on steel and aluminum, and that means, most assuredly, higher prices for cars and trucks if they come to be. For many states in our country, Canada is their largest trading partner, and interestingly, many of those states will have competitive races for governor and Senate. Let me list some of them for you: Maine, Ohio, New Hampshire, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. Consumers and workers there may head into the fall finding themselves in a tariff boat with a lot of their friends, a boat not of their making, but heading in an economically more costly direction, waiting for the day, hopefully, their ship will come in. I'm honored tonight to be joined by Anthony Mason, who is not only the senior culture correspondent for CBS News, but in an earlier and very successful journalistic life, covered many of the same economic issues I just raised and maybe inartfully attached to one of Dolly's best songs. Anthony, it's great to have you with us.
It's great to be with you, Major. And actually, it's a really good point because economically, you know, as you know, Dolly wasn't just a great artist. She was a great businesswoman and
Yes.
and a very successful businesswoman. And one of my favorite Dolly Parton stories is that, you know, she was on a show with Porter Wagoner, who kind of lifted her up to sort of the beginning of stardom in the late 60s. And then she decided it was time to leave. She knew she could make it on her own, and she had to say goodbye to Porter, who actually fought her leaving. as she left, she wrote a song that we now all know called I Will Always Love You, which was written essentially to say goodbye to Porter Wagoner. And at that song, she took to #1 on the country charts. And then someone came along and said, I'd really like to record it. It happened to be one Elvis Presley. It was actually his manager, Major Tom Parker, who came to Dolly and said, we want to record that song. And she said, okay, let's talk about it. And he said, you know, anything that Elvis records, he typically takes 50% ownership of. And Dolly looked at Colonel Parker and said, that won't be happening. And the rest is history.
But someone else named, I believe, Whitney Houston did do that song.
Yes, and as she said when somebody asked her years later how she felt about that, she said, I'm laughing all the way to the bank. You know, it's all of what I love about that story is all of Dolly's talents are mixed up in that story. She was not only a phenomenal songwriter, she was an incredibly savvy businesswoman and knew who she was right from the get-go.
And a legendary philanthropist, which we'll get to in a second. But let's talk about songwriting, because you had an interview with her in July 2024. Let's play a segment of that interview.
The songwriting part has always seemed to come very naturally to you. I don't think you get enough credit as a lyricist.
Well, thank you for saying that, because I take myself more serious as a songwriter than anything else. And if I had to give up every other part of the business, I would choose to be a writer.
Yeah.
Because that's my therapist, my guitar is my friend. Anything that I feel that I'm going through, anything that I see other people that I love going through that don't know how to express it, I'm able to do that. I'm able to channel their feelings as well as mine. And I love that I can rhyme. Early on, I was able to rhyme.
Yeah.
You know, I can rhyme words good.
But it's not just your rhyming, Dolly. It's the words you pick. It's the words you use.
Thank you.
It's really, I mean, you've written some amazing songs.
Well, I love doing it, let's put it that way, and I hope I can always write. And of course, I love singing the songs I write, love recording them, and I love hearing other people sing songs I write, and that's always a big thrill to any writer to hear somebody else do your songs.
Anthony, you live much closer to the entertainment world than I do. I was surprised by this news. Were you #1? And #2, convey to my audience the philanthropic side of Dolly's life.
I was stunned by it, Major. As many signals as we've had in the last couple of years. I mean, not long after that interview, Dolly ended up being, you know, we all heard that she was having some health issues. Her sister, I think it was, came out and said, pray for her. And then Dolly appeared again and said, you know, I'm okay. I'm dealing with some stuff. She actually, as recently as in June, she was opening, I think it was basically a truck stop gas station, and she made an appearance. So I think a lot of us thought she was doing better. And also, Dolly's just one of those people you can't imagine not being there. She's been around for 60 years and been a cultural presence throughout that entire time. And so, you know, I was just, as much as in my mind, you know, I was preparing for it, I still can't quite believe it. And as to her philanthropy, one of the first time I met her, she was out promoting, you know, her program for getting books to children called the Imagination Library, which I think in many ways she viewed as her greatest legacy. It was a tribute to her dad, who was illiterate, but as she said, was an incredibly smart man and gave her all of her business sense. But she started that program, which basically sent books to children on a monthly basis, which is absolutely huge in some parts of this country. It's very hard for kids to have access to reading. And she was an incredible advocate for it and made a huge difference because of what she did.
Anthony Mason, always a pleasure, sir, particularly this evening. Thank you so very much. Nancy Cordes joins me now from the White House, where the topicality of the day really is this trade dispute between the United States and Canada.
That's right, Major. And this trade dispute actually dipped into geography today when the president threatened to rename Lake Ontario, one of the 5 Great Lakes bordering both Canada and the U.S., rename it Lake America to show how displeased he is with the Canadians for walking away from trade negotiations this weekend. The Canadians put their money where their mouth is today. They announced major hikes in tariffs, up to 50% tariffs on hundreds of U.S. goods, everything from dairy to dishwashers. And they also announced a slate of measures basically to soften the blow for Canadian workers and businesses, business loans, expanded jobless benefits, a sign not only that they think that this escalating trade war is going to be harmful to Canadians and Americans alike, but also that they think it could potentially last a while. You'll recall this weekend all this started because the Canadians walked away from these ongoing trade talks with the U.S., saying that President Trump and his team had new and unreasonable demands at the last minute. A short time ago, Major, CNN's Jim Sciutto spoke with President Trump, managed to get him by phone, and said, is that true? Did you impose last-minute demands? And President Trump said, that sounds like me, essentially confirming that that was the case. And he said, nevertheless, he expects the Canadians to make major concessions, or I guess this trade war continues.
We will see. Nancy Cordes, thank you very much. Ontario Premier Doug Ford hasn't minced words about President Trump. Yesterday, he said, Trump can, quote, kiss my ass. I spoke with Premier Ford earlier today, and here is our conversation. Mr. Premier, we're not dainty around here with direct quotes. You called President Trump a dictator, a bully, and he said he can kiss your ass. Do you regret any of those comments? Want to apologize for them?
No, not at all. I stand by those comments. You know, he can throw the punches out and the insults, and I think it was a little heated yesterday. I think we have to get back to the table, Major, and focus on jobs in the U.S. and in Canada. We're the two closest friends, allies, and each other's number one customer. So that's what I'd like to focus on.
What about this suggestion from the president to rename Lake Ontario Lake America?
Well, you know something, I have to laugh when he comes up with these ideas. It's always going to be Lake Ontario here in Canada, and you know that's up to the president if he wants to name it Lake America, Lake Trump, whatever he wants to do. That's his prerogative. So the tariffs announced today by the Canadian government set to go into effect September 8th. That means there's room, quite obviously, to negotiate a way out of this. What does that look like? And can those negotiations be successful if the U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick is involved? Well, you know, Howard's a tough negotiator, but we just want a fair trade deal that we've had for years and decades, actually. Both economies are so integrated that, you know, I always told the Prime Minister, no deal is better than a bad deal. And if we decide it's a bad deal, then it has to be dollar for dollar, tariff for tariff. And that's unfortunate because it's just going to hurt Canadians and Americans. And I got to tell you, Major, I love the U.S., I love Americans, and so do Canadians. So when we're putting a tariff on Canada, it's a tax on Americans. And we've seen it already happening. It's uncertainty, and there's no stability right now. Job numbers dropped last month in the U.S. We actually created 52,000 jobs in Ontario, 120,000 over the last 4 months. But again, the president ran on creating more jobs, lowering the cost of living, and it's been the total opposite. When you attack your number one customer, and yes, you're our number one customer, it doesn't work out very well, especially in the auto sector. You know, I feel bad for the auto sector in Canada and Ontario, but I also feel really bad for the workers in Texas, Kentucky, Michigan, Illinois, and Ohio, and other states that produce parts or autos. We buy 400% more autos than anyone in the world, and they're going to get laid off. It's the auto sector has spent $110 billion on tariffs. They have to make that up one way or another.
And is this, in the end, Mr. Premier, all about a disagreement that was entered into late in these negotiations over large trucks and SUVs?
Yes, I would say so, but there's a combination. President Trump and Howard Lutnick kept changing the goalposts, and we thought you'd have a deal, then they changed it again and again and again. So, you know, that's unfortunate. We need to have a fair deal for both countries. I believe in Fortress North America. Let's put a ring around North America and create more jobs, more opportunities, more certainty. You know, he's treating us, you know, like we're communist China here. We're the closest friends and allies that the U.S. has anywhere in the entire world, and I want to keep it that way. So that's what we're going to be focused on.
Let me,
Hopefully
Mr. Premier, with your permission, let me give some statistics to my audience. I know you're familiar with them, but my audience might not be. 3/4 of Canadian exports go to the United States. That's 25% of your GDP. 40% of Canadian small businesses say they will be affected by these new tariffs, and a third of those small businesses surveyed said they expect sales to drop 50% or more if these tariffs go fully into effect. My question, Mr. Premier, is can Canadians withstand this trade war? Because it's going to hurt them a lot quickly.
Well, sure, it's going to be pain on both sides of the border. Ontario alone, employs 9 million people in the U.S. that are producing widgets and products and everything else under the sun that we end up buying, and it's going to hurt Americans as much as it's going to hurt Canadians. The only difference is we have the financial stability to support our businesses, and we're diversifying trade around the world. We've seen numbers increase around the world by 100 to 150%, and we're still creating jobs as the U.S. Lost jobs last month, and again, it's going to hurt both sides of the border. But we don't have the $40 trillion debt. We don't have problems with our bonds. Right now, the U.S. is feeling the pressure financially, but we'll get through that, and hopefully we won't have to go down that road. The U.S., we're the #1 customer when we buy steel. You need our aluminum, you need our high-grade nickel, you need the potash that keeps your farmers going. 90% of it goes down to the U.S. You need our 4.1 million barrels a day of oil that we ship down there, the uranium that gets refined in Ontario and then gets enriched into the U.S. So, and not to mention the electricity that we keep the lights on in businesses.
To that point, Mr. Premier, you have suggested that one of the ways Canada might retaliate is to cut off energy supplies, power to Americans. Is that going to happen?
Well, I said surcharges, and who wants to pay more for electricity in the U.S.? I want to send more electricity, more power, more high-grade nickel. That's what Canadians want to do, and support the U.S. Or they have the alternative, the president. He can deal with his good buddies China and Russia, and we'll see what happens. But I would rather deal with your closest friend and ally to keep your agricultural sector, that we're your #1 customer. We buy $30 billion a year, tied with Mexico. It's gonna hurt the American people. Why? Why is he doing this? Why is he attacking us? This was an unprovoked attack on Canadians, on our sovereignty. He keeps mentioning 51st state. No, that's not going to fly. So let's see how this plays out. Hopefully everyone comes to their senses, and we have a fair deal for both countries.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford, I appreciate the time, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless America. God bless Canada. Let's get a deal. Thank you.
Thank you. South Carolina is on our minds tonight because Republican voters are at the polls today for a Senate primary runoff. All this politicking in late summer, a bit of a surprise due to the unexpected death of Senator Lindsey Graham. On the ballot today, Senator Darlene Graham, the late senator's sister, and Congressman Ralph Norman. Graham, as you probably know, has the endorsement of President Trump, and that's putting it mildly. Ed O'Keefe joins me now from Columbia, South Carolina. So, Ed, set the scene and the stakes.
Well, Major, we've never had a special election runoff primary quite like this. And in my years of doing this, I've never ended an election night at a law firm. But that's where Darlene Graham's holding her election night party tonight, with the lawyers. Just an interesting choice of venue. This has been an interesting one, and it took a turn last week, you may have heard, when Darlene Graham got asked a question about whether Taiwan and the South China Sea are important to national security. And she essentially said, unlike my brother, I'm not really into national security. I'm more concerned about issues like affordability. So it was interesting when we heard her respond to questions about the president's decision to put more tariffs on Canada and affordability, how she answered. Take a listen.
I completely trust the president when it comes to tariffs. I know tariffs are hard and not everybody likes them, but they're a great negotiating tool. And I think he's got our best interest in mind, so he's using it as a tool to help our country. So I completely trust President Trump on the tariffs.
And is there something you do affirmatively, some piece of legislation to help drive down the cost of things?
We'll see when I get there.
We'll see when I get there. She's been there for several weeks as the appointed senator, so she couldn't answer questions last week on foreign policy. She couldn't give a specific answer on economic policy, even though she says that's the issue that voters have been talking to her about. And it's that concern that she may not quite be ready for this that has many Republicans in this state believing she may not pull it off tonight. And the 5-term Congressman Ralph Norman, member of the House Freedom Caucus, whose politics line up with the MAGA movement and the president pretty well, may be able to eke out a win here and end the Graham legacy after nearly 30 years of public service to the Palmetto State, Graham, or Major.
Yes, and South Carolina is a Republican state. It is a very clearly aligned Trump state, yet there is a Democrat, Annie Andrews, waiting for whoever emerges from tonight's runoff, and I understand you had a chance to talk with her.
Yeah, in part because, we've never really seen a candidate see her opponent die during the campaign and then have to recalibrate. So we wanted to check in with her. She's a pediatrician from the Charleston area who had run for Congress before unsuccessfully and knows that she's got an uphill climb in a state like this. You know, there are reaches that both parties try to think, well, if this happens or that happens or the mood really changes, maybe we have a shot. You'd have to put this in the very far maybe column for Democrats, but Andrews has an interesting story to tell, and we talked to her a little bit about her would-be opponents. Take a listen to what she said.
Both of these Republicans in the runoff today represent everything that's wrong with Washington, D.C. Darlene has said she'll just be up there to do whatever Donald Trump tells her to do. She will be a rubber stamp. She will not offer any checks and balances on this administration that is out of control. And Ralph Norman is a 73-year-old career politician who's enriched himself while in office. He'd be 79 years old at the end of his freshman term in the U.S. Senate.
President Trump won South Carolina by 18 points in 2024. Andrews suggests that she's in a much tougher race with whoever her Republican opponent is. We'll see, Major. But ultimately, again, tonight, whoever prevails has the edge going into November.
And on Darlene Graham's behalf, the president has not just conducted a rally, a tele-rally, but also devoted some of his super PAC money to get out the vote effort. So the president all in on this. Ed O'Keefe, thank you very much. Still to come on the Takeout, Michigan Republican Congressman Tom Barrett joins the program. He has a bill that aims to protect local communities from data centers being built without their consent. Also, Dean Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, is trying to save face after his meeting with Jared Kushner, President's son-in-law. His message, that is to say, Jeffries' message to unhappy Democrats. Plus, after World War II, the U.S. went on a worldwide hunt for top Nazi leaders. I'm joined by an author who chronicles all of that in his new book, They Shall Not See the Dawn. The Takeout returns in 90 seconds.
I'm sick of people controlling my fate. And my guess is you are too. I'm big and loud enough that people see me coming, but people underestimate you.
Are we really starting a firm?
Yes, and you're the secret weapon.
Okay, I'll do it.
What?
Work for you.
There are no Silicon Valley law firms representing the exploited. They all just make money from working for the Goliaths.
What about the unrepresented?
It's a niche. We can serve it.
What now?
Now we have to defend you.
I think we've recorded enough of this.
We're just getting started.
Boom.
Coming CBS Premiere Week.
NCIS!
Guess who's back?
Ready?
LL Cool J.
NCIS takes NYC.
Scott Conn.
NCIS New York premieres this fall on CBS. We will see you there. I love it.
NCIS New York. New series Tuesday, October 6th. Part of CBS Premiere Week. A toast to a new vampire family.
Salud.
You guys really love your tomato juice.
Mama.
Eternally Yours, part of CBS Premier Week.
Welcome back to Takeout. As you may well have noticed, limiting data centers, or at least increasing conversation about where they're going to be placed and under what conditions, has become increasingly a bipartisan issue. There's a new House bill that would prohibit the federal government from getting involved into local data center debates. Michigan Republican Congressman Tom Barrett introduced that, and he joins me now. Congressman, we'll get to that in a second. You have my word. But I just want to ask you about the intensifying trade war between the United States and Canada. Support, neutral, or opposed?
Well, I think that for here in Michigan, we have a pretty special relationship with Canada. Canada is our largest trading partner in Michigan. We have a lot of products that go back and forth over the border a multitude of different times. Vehicles that are built here are assembled in Canada, vice versa, and across the board with different manufacturing, especially that is really the lifeblood of Michigan. For me, I want to make sure that we have certainty in our markets, that we have certainty in our trade relationships, and that we have an arrangement that benefits both the United States and our trading partners in Canada. I'm still hopeful that we can get to that point, and I think that there's work underway to get there. I felt we were very close to that just a few days ago, and I'm hoping that we can kind of put this back on the right track. I'll be going back to Washington on Monday, and that's something that is going to be definitely a high topic of conversation about how do we get this thing back on the right track to make sure that we can protect American interests, protect our industries here in the United States, protect market access for our folks selling in Canada. There's a lot of issues with agriculture, especially in the dairy industry and other things, making sure that we're doing that in the appropriate way and providing certainty on both sides of that so that you know what to expect in that trade relationship.
Congressman, I don't know if you heard my colleague Nancy Cordes describe a conversation the president had this afternoon by phone with Jim Sciutto of CNN, in which he confirmed that he injected last-minute requests into these negotiations, and that led the Canadians, in all probability, to step back away from that. How does that land with you? Are you good with that?
Well, I certainly wasn't party to those conversations, so I can't say with certainty whether that did or didn't happen. But I think any type of negotiation that's taking place has to be done with candor on both sides.
On this program a couple of weeks ago, I talked to Erin Brockovich, who is very deeply involved in the data center issue, and she said these non-disclosure agreements are terrible for the entire conversation, whether you support them or do not support data centers. They're a cloak of secrecy. And as I understand it, that's something your legislation is about.
You're exactly right. And I fully agree that non-disclosure agreements with public officials is a huge issue that we have to confront. Sometimes I remind people that the only non-disclosure agreement I signed was my security clearance when I was a soldier in the United States Army. And that's something that as a public official, when I was in state government or now having the privilege of serving in Congress, I think we have to protect the public interest. And one of the things I've heard out of concern about data centers, regardless of what people think about the siting and zoning and challenges and local issues about that, is these non-disclosure agreements that are being signed in regards to data center siting. And I believe that we ought to do everything we can to stop that and block that from happening. I can't block in state law something from the federal government, but I can prohibit federal officials and members of Congress from signing non-disclosure agreements through federal policy. And that's one of the things that my bill would do, would be prohibiting members of Congress from signing non-disclosure agreements around the issue of data centers.
Let me ask you about federal environmental reviews. You supported something called the SPEED Act, which would lighten them in this space for data centers. The president also has signed an executive order that would exclude data centers from environmental review, and the administration's made it clear it wants to put data centers on public land. How does that fit with what you're talking about?
Well, I certainly support robust oversight of anything, whether it's a data center or anything else. The SPEED Act was really designed for a whole host of different industries. This wasn't like something conceived about data centers. This was about development and innovation in a whole bunch of different ways. I'll give you an example. I serve on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and we're looking at certainly upgrading and rebuilding infrastructure across our country. I toured a local road commission who was telling me they wanted to simply replace a 60-year-old culvert that was failing, that was just managing a small stream passing underneath a road. And to get that done and reviewed was going to be a tremendous environmental oversight burden just to replace something that was already in the ground to begin with. not changing anything. So really doing permitting reform is something that is incredibly important for the build out of America and what we're trying to do to innovate and build things again. This was not done in any specific way around data centers or anything like that. But I do believe that at the end of the day, these decisions around data centers have to be left and protected with the local community. That's why the bill I introduced that would prohibit the federal government from any federal agency overriding or encroaching upon that decision of local control, and would prohibit federal funds from federal agencies to be used to also attack any effort of local control around the siting and zoning of data centers.
Michigan Republican Congressman Tom Barrett, I appreciate the time, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
Coming up next, a new study on CTE and NFL player deaths. The man who led the research joins us to dive into the numbers and what that might mean. You're watching The Takeout. I'm Major Garrett in Washington, inviting you to The Takeout. Politics, policy, people, and pop culture served up weeknights. What's on the menu? Plenty. The day's happenings with curiosity and formality and humor. It's serious discussion, but we do not take ourselves too seriously. Who is a better speaker, Mike Johnson or you? Oh, come on. Join me on The Takeout. Streaming right here on CBS News 24/7.
Coming CBS Premiere Week.
Ready?
LL Cool J.
NCIS takes NYC.
Scott Conn.
NCIS New York premieres this fall on CBS. We will see you there.
NCIS New York. New series Tuesday, October 6th. Part of CBS Premiere Week.
It's a good time. Join us, because we think what, Nate?
There's no better way to start your day.
What he said.
Thank you. I need a hug.
CBS Mornings.
Weekdays at 7 a.m.
We don't want to accept that there's evil that walks amongst us, but it does.
You know how when you meet somebody, you can't put your finger on it, but something's not right?
You never know what anybody is capable of.
I am a serial killer who's only killed once.
Did you think when this goes public, this town's gonna be shocked?
Absolutely.
When you're dealing with a 30-year-old cold case, it seems like there's not a lot of hope.
We knew there was a monster out there and we were going to find him and get him.
Look at him just coming around the corner like that.
We started tracking the area.
When did this accident scene become a crime scene?
Police! You called him a lying liar who lies about lying.
Do you know why we're stopping you today?
What makes you so sure that you stabbed your sister while you were sleepwalking?
I never got a chance to see her one last time.
Such injustice. I can't believe they did this to her.
But no matter how hard it gets, never give up.
I'm Natalie Morales with 48 Hours. Did you have anything to do with Joanna Hunter's death?
This is a family that just wants justice.
New information coming into CBS News 24/7.
And liftoff pilots like we never saw the helicopter.
Clash between federal agents and
The
protesters.
suspect waited for quite some
What the
time.
court did was really spend a lot of time looking at the Constitution.
I'm Tony DeCopel. The CBS Evening News is the story of America one day at a time.
I'm Tony.
While we cover a lot of ground, we also stick to the basics. What's real?
Do you ever get scared?
And what's important.
I'm just asking you why you're here and what your message is.
Success for us is not how much we pack into a show, but how much you take away from it. And we'll always end with the good stuff, something to remind you that there's a lot of life out there beyond the headlines. So join me. This is the CBS Evening News.
I got this.
Are you vampires?
Is that why none of you age?
Oh, hey, guys.
From the mortals who brought us ghosts, Eternally Yours, part of CBS Premiere Week.
Welcome back to The Takeout. In terms of revenue, ratings, the NFL dominates American sporting life, cultural life too. That's why a new study can only be described as alarming when it talks about the prevalence of CTE among NFL players. According to the British Medical Journal, 1 in 4 players who played in the NFL who died between 2016 and 2021 had the degenerative brain disease. But that 25% figure is very likely to be much higher. Researchers found at least 91% of the 235 players who they studied during those 6 years tested positive for CTE. I want to bring in Chris Nowinski. He is the co-founder and the CEO of the Concussion and CTE Foundation, which conducted this important study along with Mass General Brigham and Boston University. Chris, it's good to have you with us. Help my audience remember what CTE is and its relationship to repetitive brain injuries, often through athletic competition.
Yeah, CTE stands for chronic traumatic encephalopathy. It's a degenerative brain disease that is caused by repeated head impacts. It's primarily seen in contact sport athletes. It is almost never seen in the regular population, and most community brain banks say fewer than 1% of the population has this, and it's not zero only because we play contact sports.
So what does this mean for players in the NFL, their long-term health, and the ability of anyone associated with the NFL, players' union or the owners or fans writ large, to try to turn this in a different direction, if that's possible?
Yeah, I think we've always hoped that this wasn't as bad as the early studies seen when we started with 11 of the first 12 NFL players having CTE, and now we're saying that it's at least 25% over a 6-year period, and it still may be as high as 98%. This is a disease that causes dementia. It causes personality change, causes behavior change. It really changes who you are. And so we need to take it extremely seriously, not just for those NFL players that we need to find a cure for, but also because if it's very high in the NFL, it's also high in former college and high school players.
And Chris, you can have suspicions about this, but you can't confirm this, as I understand it. Please correct me if I'm wrong, until after death. Is there any way to get ahead of this, or is there something in the future that may help us diagnose this and treat this sooner?
We're working on it. And, we built a great relationship with the retired players community, which is why we were able to get so many brains of NFL players. But we're also recruiting the living ones so we can study them through multiple studies funded by the National Institutes of Health called Diagnose CTE. One's called Bank CTE. We're getting blood. We're doing scans. We are on the cusp of diagnosing this during life. And that's going to be another significant moment in this conversation as we find out exactly how many people have it, but also we can start those clinical trials to figure out, can we stop it?
The NFL released a statement that read in part that it continuously strives to make the game of football safer, including by implementing strategies to reduce concussions and head impacts. How do you evaluate that? How do fans who love the players and love the game, how should they evaluate that?
The reality is we can do better, and there have been some modest steps taken, like reducing hitting in practice, but they are not extreme steps. It's not like we've cut hits to the head in half. So I don't think anybody should look at this study as a historical study. This included, dozens of people who died in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, and 90% of them had CTE as well. If we actually are serious about preventing CTE, we'd have to go far further, like saying you can only play flag until 14, not hitting in practice throughout your entire career. Then we could talk about reducing hits, but reducing CTE. But remember that these players are all bigger, stronger, and faster now than they ever were in the past. The linemen are 100 pounds heavier today than they were for some of these older guys that we studied. So this is an ongoing problem, and we need to bring a lot more resources to bear and really get behind developing a cure because I don't think we can prevent this if we're still going to play tackle football.
It's an ongoing situation. It's an ongoing conversation. And Chris, I hope we can call upon you in the future where there's more information to discuss about this important topic. Chris Nowinski, I appreciate your time very, very much. Coming up, Abdul Al-Sayed's lively appearance on Fox News. Well, that's one way to characterize it. CBS News political contributor Chuck Rocha weighs in on the state of the Michigan Senate race and a lot more. Just Chuck by himself, man, solo. It's going to be so awesome. You're watching The Takeout. I'm Major Garrett in Washington, inviting you to the Takeout. Politics, policy, people, and pop culture served up weeknights. What's on the menu? Plenty. The day's happenings with curiosity, informality, and humor. It's serious discussion, but we do not take ourselves too seriously. Who was a better speaker, Mike Johnson or you? Oh, come on. Join me on the Takeout. Streaming right here on CBS News 24/7.
Coming CBS Premiere Week.
Ready?
LL Cool J.
NCIS takes NYC.
Scott Kahn.
NCIS New York premieres this fall on CBS. We will see you there.
NCIS New York. New series Tuesday, October 6th. Part of CBS Premiere Week.
It's a good time. Join us because we think what, Nate?
There's no better way to start your day.
What he said.
Thank you. I need a hug.
CBS Mornings.
Weekdays at 7 a.m.
We don't want to accept that there's evil that walks amongst us, but it does.
You know how when you meet somebody, you can't put your finger on it, but something's not right?
You never know what anybody is capable of.
I am a serial killer who's only killed once.
Did you think when this goes public, this town's gonna be shocked?
Absolutely.
When you're dealing with a 30-year-old cold case, it seems like there's not a lot of hope.
We knew there was a monster out there and we were going to find him and get him.
Look at him just coming around the corner like that.
We started tracking the area.
When did this accident scene become a crime scene?
Police!
You called him a lying liar who lies about lying.
Do you know why we're stopping you today?
What makes you so sure that you stabbed your sister while you were sleepwalking?
I never got a chance to see her one last time.
Such injustice. I can't believe they did this to her.
But no matter how hard it gets, never give up.
I'm Natalie Morales with 48 Hours. Did you have anything to do with Joanna Hunter's death?
This is a family that just wants justice.
New information coming into CBS News 24/7.
Pilots like we never saw the helicopter.
Clash between federal agents and
The suspect waited for quite some time.
What the court did was really spend a lot of time looking at the Constitution.
I'm Tony DeCopel. The CBS Evening News is the story of America one day at a time.
I'm Tony.
While we cover a lot of ground, we also stick to the basics. What's real
Do you ever get scared?
and what's important.
I'm just asking you why you're here and what your message is.
Success for us is not how much we pack into a show, but how much you take away from it. And we'll always end with the good stuff, something to remind you that there's a lot of life out there beyond the headlines. So join me. This is the CBS Evening News.
I got this.
Are you vampires?
Is that why none of you age?
Oh, hey, guys.
From the mortals who brought us ghosts, Eternally Yours, part of CBS Premiere Week.
Welcome back to the Takeout. Welcome to the Conversation Corner. Michigan Democratic Senate candidate Abdul El Sayed joined Fox News last night with Jesse Waters. Pretty lively interview, including this exchange when El Sayed was asked about gender-affirming surgery for trans minors. Listen.
So you think it's okay for a parent to slash his kid's thing-a-ling off? You think that's okay? I mean, do you really want to have this conversation? Are you circumcised? Yeah, but I mean, that's a Jesse, personal question. Okay, doctor. So you probably should want to move on. You don't want to talk about gas prices. You don't want to talk about groceries. You don't want to talk about healthcare. You don't want to talk about this stupid trade war that's about to destroy Michigan's economy. We spent the whole interview talking about that stuff. That's destroying. That is destroying our own military. You don't seem to want to talk about any of those things. You want to bring up all this culture war.
CBS News political contributor and Democratic strategist Chuck Rocha with the blazer that pays. The blazer that pays. The beautiful pink blazer.
One second. The blazer to honor Dolly Parton. She always wore a little pop of color.
Exactly.
So I found the brightest thing I could to honor Dolly.
We are all about honoring Dolly today. Right. Give me your sense of that exchange.
You know, when I was watching that, I was thinking, this is a strategy. It's a strategy to go to Fox on El Sayed. It's a strategy on Waters to say, what about the trans kid? A lot like what they did to Kamala Harris, when she had to answer an uncomfortable question. It's a political strategy. And it's his strategy to pivot back to, What is this about? Money out of politics, money in your pocket. Which one of those arguments
Or
wins?
are you circumcised?
Right. Let's change the subject. Let's laugh, and move on, because you don't have to answer the question again, which is part as a strategist. I'm like, who's going to run the TV commercial around circumcision or jobs and beef prices?
Right. What do you think? What's the answer to that question?
Look, I think it cuts both ways, because in a general electorate, for a midterm election, me and you both have talked about this. It's about turnout and who turns out, or who's turned off, which is what Fox News is. Are Jewish voters turned off, and are other Democratic base voters more turned on to get there? I think it's a combination where it's not one answer fits all. So I think there's a little of both.
Let me talk to you about Hassan Piker, who is someone who campaigns with, advocates for progressive candidates. He has been with Abdul El-Sayed. And he recently, this weekend, talked about American Jews and their support of Israel bringing on violence and anti-Semitism because of their support for Israel. Several Michigan Democratic politicians have denounced this. Hakeem Jeffries has denounced it. And now Abdul El-Sayed is going to have to do some explaining about what his relationship with Hassan Piker was and will be in the future. Is Hassan Piker becoming a sidecar issue in this Senate race that could knock it off track for El-Sayed?
I think it's important that he put out a statement, because now he can refer to it from the strategist's point of view. He said, this guy don't speak for my campaign, and only me and my paid surrogates speak for this campaign. So when you ask the question, you go, I speak for him,
right,
not
but
him.
you know what the answer always on the back of that is. Do you denounce or not? Yes or no?
Right.
With or against?
Right.
Binary choice.
Again, this becomes a political strategy of what do you do? Do you denounce what he said? And he should denounce what he said and say, look, there's going to be lots of folks who support me, not only here, but on Twitter and all these other. I can't control everything every crazy person says. It reminds me of when I was working for Bernie Sanders, and you had all these Bernie bros online who would also say crazy things that people would get mad at Bernie about, and we'd be like, we can't control everybody. I understand those folks aren't on the stage with us doing that campaigning. So this also cuts both ways, and it's a political strategy by Republicans. Do they take that clip and play it at every Jewish synagogue in Michigan? That's another strategy.
Right. What about this trade war in Michigan? Because Abdul El-Sayed is counting, and lots of Democrats are counting on dissatisfaction with coming price increases and maybe job losses if this trade war goes full to the mattresses.
I think this is a much bigger deal. And I think it's a bigger deal because not every American's on Twitter or knows who Piker is or even knows, Chuck Rocha, what Twitch is. Like, I Twitch, but I didn't know it was online. Anyway, I digress. But what they do know is how much they pay for a big-ass truck in Michigan when they're going to their hunting lease. I mean, you both know these guys that drive to the up part of Michigan. They go hunting, they go fishing, and it costs a lot of money to fill up that truck and to put gas or diesel in that tractor. And I think that probably is a bigger deal than anything that we're talking about, because it's a reminder every day when they pass the gas station.
All right, every time I'm here, I ask you about James Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett. They still have not reconciled. When is that going to happen, and how important is that for the general, for Tallarico?
I think James is doing what he needs to, and I think he reaches out all the time to every black voter in the state of Texas. We can't control what one person is happy or mad about, but what he can do is invest in those communities, and he's doing that in the black community. He had a great time in Houston at Fun Friday, they call it, with all the black preachers in the community there. It was really a great event, and things are happening in Texas.
With the blazer that pays, Chuck Rocha. Dolly Parton, we love her, and we're glad you have the blazer. Coming up, a new book chronicles the manhunt for Nazi officers before the Nuremberg trials. That's an important distinction. Its author joins me next. You're watching The Takeout.
An artist who's back in the fold, plus a moment in time, and country music great Kenny Chesney this Sunday morning.
America's favorite news program, 60 Minutes, new season, CBS, September 13th.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nora O'Donnell, and this is Healthful. Every week, I bring you the latest science and trusted medical expertise to help you improve your health, your happiness, and just to improve your life. Healthful, a new CBS News podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Tony DeCopel. The CBS Evening News is the story of America one day at a time.
I'm Tony.
Success for us is not how much we pack into a show, but how much you take away from it. So join me. This is the CBS Evening News.
I'm sick of people controlling my fate. And my guess is you are too. I'm big and loud enough that people see me coming, but people underestimate you.
Are we really starting a firm?
Yes, and you're the secret weapon.
Okay, I'll do it.
What?
Work for you.
There are no Silicon Valley law firms representing the exploited. They all just make money from working for the Goliaths.
What about the unrepresented?
It's a niche. We can serve it. What now?
Now we have to defend you.
I think we've recorded enough of this.
We're just getting started.
Boom.
It's a good time. Join us, because we think what, Nate?
There's no better way to start your day.
What he said.
Thank you. I need a hug.
CBS Morning.
Weekdays at 7 a.m.
I'm Major Garrett in Washington, inviting you to the Takeout. Politics, policy, people, and pop culture served up weeknights. What's on the menu? Plenty. The day's happenings with curiosity, informality, and humor. It's serious discussion, but we do not take ourselves too seriously. Who is a better speaker, Mike Johnson or you? Oh, come on. Join me on the Takeout. Streaming right here on CBS News 24/7. Welcome back to the Takeout. Welcome to the other side of the conversation corner. Germany's surrender on VE Day did not mark the end of America's fight against Nazis. New book looks at the manhunt, extremely intense manhunt for top Nazi leaders after World War II, but before the Nuremberg trials. It's called They Shall Not See the Dawn, the manhunt for the Third Reich's most wanted. Charles Lockman is the author, and he joins me now. I want you to also know he is the executive producer of Inside Edition, which also airs on CBS. Charles, it's great to have you with us. What led you in this direction?
Me, Major.
What led you in this direction? And there's kind of a general assumption after all these years, all the stories have been told, but this sounds like an untold story.
It is absolutely the untold story of what I call the greatest manhunt in history. As you point out, after VE Day, there was more work to be done. And one of the issues that General Eisenhower faced was the fact that the German resistance was forming in the Bavarian Alps, and they consisted of some of the top Nazi leaders who had yet to be captured. They were called their werewolves, and the concern was that they were organizing into a guerrilla army that was aimed at fighting the occupying forces of the U.S., British, and the Soviet governments. So there was a real serious concern about how effective these werewolves were going to be. And so it was not just a matter of bringing these wanted Nazis to justice, but it was a practical issue of cutting off this fighting force before they could really form into an effective guerrilla army.
And this is a counterintelligence strategy, which is a very different kind of spycraft, not fully developed in the United States. It had to be developed on the fly and penetrate all sorts of Nazi efforts to deny who they actually were, if I understand this correctly.
Right. The manhunt was led by a little-known and long-forgotten unit of the U.S. Army called the Counterintelligence Corps. And they were really the best and the brightest. They consisted of some of the most famous soldiers who became famous after the war. People like Henry Kissinger was a member of an agent in the CIC, and so was a lieutenant named Jerome Salinger, better known many years later as J.D. Salinger, the author of The Catcher in the Rye. And they were picked for both their brain power and their knowledge of the German language and culture, so they could really focus their search on this intense, incredibly important manhunt for the most wanted Nazis who are still at large.
Charles, what got the hook into you on this? Where did it begin?
Well, I had written a previous book about World War II called Codename Nemo, and I was fascinated by the Nuremberg war crimes trial. So looking at it, I was just wondering, okay, we know about some of the key figures, Goering, Albert Hess, Albert Speer, Rudolf Hess, I meant. And I got to thinking, well, okay, there they are in the dock at Nuremberg, but how do they end up there? Most people believe that, well, they kind of meekly surrendered and turned themselves in. That's not what happened. They were tracked down in this manhunt that was organized by the CIC, Counterintelligence Corps. And they were living under phony names and phony identification papers. They were hiding out in chalets, in all sorts of locations, in a shoemaker's house, in a rooming board. They were rooming houses. And so it became a matter of using the CIC's intelligence and breathtaking knowledge of Germany to locate these monsters.
And as I understand it, Charles, if it happened that one of these Nazi leaders was being trailed and they understood it, they would sometimes commit suicide.
Well, there were an enormous, they called it the wave, an enormous number of wanted Nazis did end their own lives. There was one notorious figure who gathered his family together for dinner, and as they were eating, he set off a hand grenade underneath the table and blew everyone up. And of course, Hermann Goering famously took a dose of cyanide poison a few hours before he was scheduled to be hung at the Nuremberg war crimes trial. So they these people decided to end their lives on their own terms. But for the most part, there were, 24 defendants at Nuremberg, and 10 of them ended up being hung.
And 30 seconds, Charles, if this had not succeeded, there was a real danger that there could have been a guerrilla harassing force for the Allies post-war.
Absolutely. This was a matter of national priority because the concern was that they could organize into this fighting force and live to breathe another day. They wanted the Third Reich to continue. They believed in Hitler and Hitlerism and fascism, and they did everything they could to defeat the occupying forces. So this was not just a matter of tracking down fugitives. This was a matter of national priority.
Charles Lackman, I appreciate the time very much, sir. Thank you. Quick reminder, The Takeout is available as a podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere else. You can find each show there and our long-form interviews, of which I'm happy to say we do many. Happy Tuesday, everyone. This is The Takeout. As we proved today, we are relentlessly curious, reliably civil, and occasionally clever. The Daily Report, coming your way next. I'm Major Garrett in Washington, inviting you to The Takeout. Politics, policy, people, and pop culture served up weeknights. What's on the menu? Plenty. The day's happenings with curiosity, informality, and humor. It's serious discussion, but we do not take ourselves too seriously. Who was a better speaker, Mike Johnson or you?